Anja, wapastem tsikason. So the last thing one more thing I want to show you is when we were harvesting the moose. Whoever was, if you had watched the video closely, when I had harvested the organs and the internal parts of the moose, one of the things I took was I called the Moswatakisi, and that's what we call it. That's what we've always called it, but there's a special way to prepare that piece on the moose, and I've actually got it here, because with Moswatakisi, when we're preparing that, we usually prepare it at the same time we're preparing the nose, because that also gets prepared and purified and cleaned and cleansed by the fire, and that's one of the special ways we prepare it. So I've got it here, and I've already washed it so that it's just come out of the water from being washed. So before I can actually get it on the fire, I do need a length, and I've got just over my arm length here worth of baling wire or hay wire, and I'm actually going to tie off each end, because what's going to happen is on the inside, when you saw me turning it out, there was a lot of fat on the outside of it. So what's going to happen now is that once we start preparing it, you'll see that fat will start to actually get hot and even start to cook. So I've tied it off on the one end. I'm going to tie it off on the other end using the same piece of wire. And I'm going to tie it as tight as I can to keep it closed. So now that I've got it tied off with my wire, it's ready to go on the fire. But with the Moswatakisi, we don't actually, or the moose gut, we don't actually just throw it on the fire. I was always taught that we sort of flash burn it, or flash cook it with a lot of heat, and to get the proper flavor that we want out of it, I actually use spruce boughs. So I've got some spruce boughs there, and it's actually the pine needles that'll sort of flash burn this and really cleanse it and clean it, as well as you'll see it start to swell up from that fat inside starting to cook, and we'll just continue doing that until this is actually charred, not completely burnt, but a charred kind of black on the outside. So I'm going to throw the spruce boughs on there, and you'll notice the fire really start to take off once those pine needles do start to light. So I'm just going to throw some on there. And once I've got them on there, I'm actually going to lay the Moswatakisi, or the moose gut, on top of those spruce boughs, just to get that process started. So I'm carefully laying it out so it's just on the spruce boughs. I'm leaving my wire out, facing out to where I can grab it. So you could see my wire is here. Those spruce boughs, we could hear them starting to light. We see the white smoke coming off, going on to the moose gut. And with this, again, we want to have our gloves, because we're going to be turning this all over, back and forth, flipping it constantly as the spruce boughs burn. And I'll just keep adding more spruce boughs and continuing the process until I get that nice, it'll look almost like the moose nose did on the outside when we were preparing the moose nose. And I just keep adjusting it as the spruce boughs are burning in there, because like I said, I want to get that so that fat inside starts to cook and it starts to swell it. And I'll just keep alternating between moving it around, flipping it, adding more spruce boughs. And it'll give us that sort of the flavor that we grew up with, for those of us that are accustomed to eating all of these parts of the moose traditionally. And this was also seen as one of the delicacies with Moswa. So you can see the spruce boughs, when they do catch, those pine needles are burning off. And I notice that I'm getting less and less spruce boughs on there. So I'm actually going to pull it off for a second. Get my gloves, add some more spruce boughs. And I'm just going to move my fire in here. Push it in so it's a tighter fire. And again, add those spruce boughs. So I got another handful of spruce boughs. Throw that on there. Get my Moswatakisi. Put it back in on the spruce boughs. And leave that to burn. Trying to spread it out so it's not all bunched up in a ball or anything like that. So it does take a bit of time, but here again, it's getting completely flash burned, cleansed by the fire, completely cleaned. Any impurities or anything from the inside of the moose is being burnt off right now. And this is the way that I was taught in my kokum, my chapan. This is the way they did it. This is the way they learned. Again, using the spruce boughs and preparing it in this way. Because if I end up just putting it on the coals or putting it just on the fire, it's just going to burn and cook. And I won't have anything left there. It'll just basically just completely char and cook and disintegrate. So this way with spruce boughs, it's kind of adding that steaming hot smoke onto there, that sort of effect, and working on it in that manner rather than just the flame, because if I do put it right on the flame, like I said, it's just going to burn holes in there and burn right through, and that's not what I'm wanting. So again, that thick white smoke, that's just the pine needles burning off. And I'm just moving it around so it's getting evenly charred inside of that pine smoke. And as with everything, it does take a bit of time. There is a process involved in there. It's not going to happen quickly if you want to do it right. And like I said, this is one of the delicacies, because when we do harvest from the moose, the insides, there are some delicacies that are used mainly in ceremonial feast offerings and in choice pieces that our elders like. And those are stuff like this, the moose gut or the Moswatakisi, mosagut, mitte, the heart, the tongues. So the tongue, the heart, the nose, and the Moswatakisi, or the moose gut, those are the 4 highly prized delicacies amongst our elders, because these were commonly used in feasts, and they were the pieces that were most flavorful. But again, they do take time to prepare, and that's why they were greatly prized in feasts and in celebrations. They were looked at as a delicacy, and they are really tasty. But again, like I said, everything takes time. There's a process to preparing them. So with this Moswatakisi, this moose gut, I'm just continuing to flip it now, where I see where it's some of it hasn't started to brown, or hasn't been in that the heat enough. And I'm getting pretty close, because you can see that it's starting to get that sort of charred look on the outside, and it's starting to actually shrink and swell. That's what I want. So I'm actually going to put more spruce boughs on. And this will probably be the last bit of spruce boughs that I have to put on. Again, spread it out, lay it to where I think it's going to all be opened up. So I got a little part here where it's still red and still kind of wet. So I want to make sure that that part is going to get hit. So again, once those spruce boughs start to ignite, I'll get that thick white smoke coming off of there from the spruce, and really getting that nice pine flavor into there. Now with the oils from the pine and everything, it doesn't actually go into there because they're burning off so quickly. But the pine smoke on there right now is really warm. And that's sort of what I'm using as my sort of flash burning, sterilizing by heat and flame. And again, I take it, move it around. Continuing to make sure that I'm getting even amount of browning and darkening on here, almost to the point where I see it's going to looking like it's starting to cook. I'll take it to that point, but I'll stop it before it does actually start to cook. And I know there's not very many people who still know how to do this, not too many people who do it, because again, either they don't know how, or it is a lot of work. And I'm finding more and more that people are just throwing stuff like this away, where especially as a traditional subsistence hunter and a gatherer, somebody who traditionally grew up not wasting anything. It does bother me, because I know that it would really bother my ancestors, my kokum, my mom, my tapans. It would bother them to know that people are just throwing things like this away, when as Nihilak, this was one of our prized delicacies and our prized foods for feasts and ceremonies. And I could see that I'm getting pretty close now, because it's starting to really brown and it's starting to really swell. That's what I'm wanting. And I see we're almost there. Kigats. So now I'm getting more heat than anything. I'm just going to give it the last finishing touches here and show you what we got out of that. So I'm actually getting to the point where it's going to start cooking and start to burst. If I cook it any farther or do it any farther on there, it's actually going to start to burst. So now what I do is I'm just going to quickly brush off all of the remaining spruce boughs and pine needles off of there. And this is what I've got. It just looks like a sausage or a garlic ring or something. But this is how I want it to look when I'm done. Now say in mid-August when the moose are really fat, these can actually get huge, twice the size as this one because of the amount of fat on there. This one is kind of late in the season, but it still gave me enough for a good feast ceremony or a good feast. And this is how we prepare moose gut or Moswatakisi in the traditional manner in preparation for a feast. So I hope you learned something today, and I hope you especially learned about utilizing everything on that you harvest, especially on an animal like a muswa. We want to respect that gift that it gives us of life and food by using every part we can possibly use. So that is how we do, how we prepare Moswatakisi or the moose gut. Samad.